I guess for me, training to be a counsellor was something that came later on in life. Previous to that, I'd had many jobs. None of them I was really satisfied, and I kept jumping around from job to job. And I think that when I qualified as a counsellor back in 2010, it worked really well for me because it meant that I could see occasional clients. It was more of a hobby than anything, whilst I brought my children up. And that was what was really important to me at that time, was to be able to have something that was for me, but also my focus that was being a mum. So it worked really, really well. And then I think what pushed me even further forward with that was having been divorced. So my husband and I separated, and things changed then because financially I had to be more financially independent. But I'd never had the belief in myself that I could run a business. So even though I knew I needed to be financially independent, and it was always that doubt, I can't do that. What, me run a business? That's not me. And I think what shifted in that was my late diagnosis of ADHD, something that really came out of the blue. I had very little knowledge about what ADHD was. And I suppose what happened there was that I started to change the narrative in my head of, I can't do that, to, well, how do I know I can't? I started thinking about I could upskill, which is something that I'd never thought about before. And so I kind of went from knowing that I can learn, because that was a big problem for me, thinking that I couldn't learn. Um, and yeah, so I just started to learn. I started to learn more about business, about marketing, and came from a place of, yeah, I can, rather than there's no way I can do this. So it was a huge turning point. And I think my idea was that, as I get older, I'll probably slow down. But actually, what's happening is I feel like I'm starting my career for the first time in my life with passion, with self-belief, which is a really wonderful place to be. So my skill set was always around one-to-one counselling, couples therapy, and I think having an ADHD diagnosis made me realise that there are, and as I started to connect more to people in that world, people who are experiencing it or working with other neurodivergent clients, I began to see I began to see a progression for me in a way of supporting other people with ADHD. And I guess my passion was around supporting women late diagnosed like myself, who had maybe lived their life not knowing, as I die, and struggled, were masking. And I think a lot of the change for women, and why more women are diagnosed later on in life, is that they present very, very differently to men. Normally their internal hyperactivity is going on in their head rather than outwardly, and they do a lot of masking. So masking is a huge thing, and so I was really passionate about wanting to support women who'd experienced what I'd had, because a huge part of living with ADHD, undiagnosed, a bit being unaware, is self-esteem. And that self-esteem erodes over time, and it becomes really, really challenging. So I saw a niche there for me as an ADHD therapist, coach, that I do have a coaching qualification as well. And so I really wanted to tune into supporting women like that, because I think there's a huge demand for it. So at the moment, I work one-to-one with clients, and through well, I call it therapeutic coaching. It's kind of like I wear both hats, because I think the therapeutic side allows us to work with all the underneath self-esteem, the years and years and years of the struggle of that, whereas the coaching will help us deal with kind of the here and now and strategies and that kind of thing. So I think that makes me stand out, because quite often you see therapy, you see coaching, or you see therapy. And I feel really fortunate that I can offer both. I have a lot of ideas going forward. So I've realized actually that there's so much more that I can do with this other than one-to-one. I've got a real interest in running workshops. in going into the workplace. I think ADHD support in the workplace is quite absent, and I'd love to be able to have that opportunity. So yeah, I now want to run group coaching, do some volunteer. I've got so many ideas. I'd love to do them all today, but I'm going to have to be patient with that. I think one of the biggest challenges for me in going forward is all of a sudden understanding myself a lot more. I had so many ideas. And I think what happened was that I actually started heading towards burnout because I had so many ideas I wanted to implement. I was excited. It was new. I was a bit like an excitable puppy wanting to move forward. And I think the challenge there for me was complete overwhelm because there was so much to do, so much to learn. I mean, I didn't know how much there was to learn about running a business. I knew I was a great counsellor, but running a business was challenging and learning all of that. And I think the challenge became where I couldn't boundary myself. I'd go into hyper focus. I'd find myself working ridiculous hours, trying to do everything all at once. I'd be up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning working and not being able to switch off. And that was a massive challenge for me. I think ADHD plays a part of that, but I also think that perfectionism as well is a big thing for me. Just wanting to get everything right, set myself on an idea. I want to move forward with it, and I want it to happen now today. So I think what's happened over time is that I've started to slow down and I've started to focus now on one thing at a time or two things at a time and have more of a plan, have more of a structure, which has given me that balance. I can't function on 2 or 3 hours sleep a night. It wasn't good for me. And I think I had to get to that point to realize actually I need to change something about that. So I think there have been lots of challenges. I think that's one of the biggest one. And I think the other one is probably the self-doubt does still creep in, even though I feel much better about myself. I still get, can I do this? Who am I? You know, there's all these great people out there who are doing an amazing job. So that kind of comparison with other coaches, other therapists, people out there that I'm meeting, you know, these great people on social media who are doing a wonderful job and kind of that comparison. So again, I think that can massively creep in as well in terms of a challenge. But I managed that. I managed that. I think previously that would have set me back, maybe, you know, 2, 3 months. I would have taken to recover from that. But now I'm pretty much recovered the next day. So that's a massive growth for me. So I'm really happy with that. Imposter syndrome for me is something that's been pretty constant throughout my life. That feeling of almost like I'm faking it. I'm just, you know, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I've had conversation after conversation over the years with my counsellor, with my supervisor, and I've always had some really, really positive feedback, but I've never been able to hear it. And I think what I've learned over the years around imposter syndrome is that it's part of me, and it's learning to manage it, and it's learning to focus on what I'm doing really, really well. So I would say years ago, when I first qualified as a counsellor, for example, I didn't think that I was very good as a counsellor. Everybody else was better than me. So I started to develop a scrapbook, and every time I got a letter, an email, some praise from a client, some feedback, it all went in this scrapbook. And it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate it so much. And I still look at it now, but I guess that gave me some external validation. And I think over the time, that external validation has seeped in more. So I can validate myself more than I used to. But there'll be moments where maybe I'm tired or stressed or something's worrying me that I'll go back to that place of imposter syndrome, and I'll be looking at, oh, they're doing amazing, and I can't do that. But I think that self-talk is really, really, really helpful. I have a wonderful support network around me with counsellor, coaches, therapy. You know, I have so much support, and they continually tell me that, I'm doing a great job, that I'm brilliant at what I do, and look at the feedback that I've got. So yeah, I think I would say to anybody who struggles with imposter syndrome, particularly when starting up a new business, going for it, it's normal. It's normal. I was on a training course and we were talking about imposter syndrome, and there wasn't one person on that table who said that they didn't experience that. So I think we can very much feel like we're on our own. Everybody else has got it together. Everybody else is feeling great, but that's just rubbish. That's not the case. We all feel it, and I think sharing that and talking about it, and just the only person comparing yourself to is yourself. So I think back to first time I posted on social media, my comparison to then to now is I've grown and I've learned, and that's the most important thing, is that just, everybody else can do their own thing. If they're on chapter 20 and I'm only on chapter 1, that's fine. That's fine as long as I'm progressing. But I think I'd just say imposter syndrome is normal. I think marketing was a new concept for me, completely new. So I got my counselling qualification, but they don't teach you marketing, and I didn't actually realise how much there was to marketing. I thought, oh, I've put myself on a directory, and that's marketing. That's all there is to it. And I did do some training around digital marketing. And I think it was through that actually I realised how much there was to do and how much opportunity that there is out there to upskill and to learn. And I think I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning something new. And I think it taught me a lot about I can't just sit back and wait for people to come knocking on my door. If I want to run a successful business, then I have to go out there, I have to market myself, and I have to do something different with a new skill set that was quite absent before. So it was a really interesting learning curve to know what there is to do. A little bit scary as well because there's a lot, but I think for me it's breaking it down. So I've started. I mean, I'm not a social media person. I never used it for personal use. So what I've realized is actually that's so important. I am my business. It's just me. There's nobody else. I'm not selling a product, a physical product. It's me. So getting out there on social media has been really, really important. So I've been doing lots of posts. I've been doing that quite regularly now. I've even braved it and started posting some videos of myself. And it's really interesting to find out that, those are the posts that do the best. So that's been a really big part, I think, in terms of marketing myself, is getting my head around all of that. I've also realized that about what a great website looks like. That's important, before it was kind of thrown together. But I think learning about what makes a good website has enabled me to go to my web developer and say, this is what I want. So I feel more knowledgeable, more confident. And the same with other areas, like I want to add more to, that's my next thing, is kind of working on email marketing. So there's a lot out there to do. And I think what I've learned is that it really is about monitoring things and seeing what works and what doesn't. So that's kind of the digital side to it. The other side is the networking. I think networking is huge. I like to call it just going somewhere to talk about my job rather than the word networking, because that fills me with fear. But the first networking event that I went to, from that, I connected with a charity, and I was able to run a workshop for them. The charity through there has then recommended me to other clients. So that was one event. And I think networking can be challenging, particularly if you're an introvert like me. It can be really difficult. And sometimes I can go and just clam up. And other times I go and I think like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing in the world. But what I've realized is it's connection. And that connecting with people is so important, because that's what business is about, isn't it? It's making those connections, and letting other people know what you do, but also being interested in what they're doing, and building that network. It's the name, networking. But I think that's been a fantastic opportunity. I'm a part of a great networking group, and I aim to continue to commit to that, even on the difficult days. Even on the days where I wake up and think, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do. My social battery is really low. I think it's a case of one step forward, put my big girl pants on and go out and do it. And I think that's been really beneficial too. Motivation for me comes in, it ebbs and flows. It really does. And I think I am super motivated to do the things that I enjoy doing. But because of my ADHD, there are tasks that I have to do that I find incredibly boring. I don't want to do them. So there's no dopamine kick there for me. So that's where I really struggle. So areas like accounts, admin, it's not my thing, but it's important. You know, I can't pass all of the all of these things on to somebody else. It's just me that does it. And I think I've got pretty good at um, doing little and often. So on the jobs that I really don't like to do, I'll break them down. So if I know that a job's going to take me or a task, a work task is going to take me 2 hours, I'll break it down and I'll do 15 minutes. I do 15 minutes and that's all I'll set myself to do because I feel like I can manage that. Whereas if I thought I had to do 2 hours of this, the chances are it's not going to get done. So breaking things down, set myself timers is really, really helpful. And also giving myself a reward after that, whether it's sitting in the garden for 10 minutes reading a book that's not work related or business related. It's having that reward that works really, really well for me. I think on tasks where I really struggle as well with motivation, I think what can help is having an accountability buddy. That's been huge for me, even in my personal life. So my mum will come and sit with me while I do my ironing because otherwise it would never get done. So I've just set up actually after I finished a recent course with somebody, and we are holding each other accountable. We're setting our goals, sharing what we want, checking in with each other. That's brilliant. I think I would say that's one of the biggest help, the biggest thing that I've done to help myself in motivation with tasks that I don't want to do is kind of saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do by the end of the day, and then checking in. It's brilliant. I would recommend that to anybody who struggles with motivation. A lot of people who work from home, work for themselves, especially if they're independent, they don't have a team of people around them, can feel isolated, particularly in the industry that I'm in. As counsellors, we hold confidentiality, so it's not like we can talk to anybody about our day or what we've done. But I think I sway. It depends on my mood. I'm an only child, and I'm used to being on my own. I'm really great at my own company. I can get overwhelmed with, if I'm around people. But I think what I do notice is that I can tick along, and I'll be okay with the isolation. I'll be absolutely okay with it. And then suddenly I'll feel it. I'll absolutely feel it. So I reach out to other people. I've got great support around me. I have a counsellor, I've got two supervisors, I have a coach, I've got my friends and family. And I think that what I've learned is that as long as I pace myself, and I think that's my challenge, I think my challenge is pacing myself. So I will isolate myself and not reach out to anybody. I'll recognize that's not healthy and I need that human interaction. So then I'll interact with everybody that I know and I get overwhelmed and I'm burnt out with my social battery. So I'm still in that process of finding a happy medium. But I do speak to lots of other counsellors, lots of people in my industry, and I would say that that's one of the biggest things that they struggle with is that feeling isolated. So I think it's really important to have that network of people around you, to have your tribe, as I like to call it, of people who are there to kind of cheerlead you along, just meet up for a coffee and obviously we can't share client details, but to kind of just say, today's been a really difficult day, or today I've had a great win and it's been a wonderful opportunity. So I think that interaction is important. The idea that I used to have an idea that I'd be quite happy sat in a little hut on top of a mountain and not connecting with anybody is not actually the reality of it. When I do connect, I get a lot from it. So I would say definitely reach out, find your tribe, people that make you feel good about yourself and that you enjoy being with, to avoid that isolation. I think for me, self-care is really important. And I think for business owners out there who have ADHD, sometimes that can be really challenging. So again, it's about monitoring that, keeping an eye on your self-care, making sure that you are taking regular breaks. I think that as I say that, the first thing that pops into my head is, but when I'm in hyper focus, I ain't taking any breaks because I'm in hyper focus. And my brain doesn't get to choose that. It doesn't get to choose what it hyper focuses on. It just does. So I think for me, one of the ways that I manage that is to allow it, because I don't have much choice in that, but to let it happen, but to make sure that I manage that the next day. So if I've had a day where I've been totally hyper focused and maybe my self care hasn't been there, I make sure that I really take care of myself. The next day, I'll look at what tasks I've got. I'll approach things that don't take a lot of energy, don't take a lot of brain power. So I think it's managing the highs and lows of that. Again, I would always say to clients that I work with, it's really important to take, regular breaks and to have a lunch hour and get out in nature. And I do that wherever I can, but sometimes I don't. And I think that's okay. I think one of the things that definitely I'm guilty of is black and white thinking. So unless I go out for a walk every lunchtime, then what's the point? And I think I've got easier on myself now. So if I do it 2, 3 days a week, then I do it 2, 3 days a week, and that's great. Rather than thinking, oh well, I've messed up today, so what's the point? So I think it's about having that balance, just noticing, checking in with yourself, tuning into your body, asking yourself, what do I need today? Am I on high energy today? Or have I had a bad night's sleep? Have I been up since 4 o'clock and I'm really struggling? And kind of choosing wherever possible to have tasks and things that match the energy. And I think part of self-care as well is how your diet, what you eat, what you drink. It's the whole package. It's the whole package. We can't run a business on empty in the same way we can't run a car on empty. So we've got to refuel, and it's looking at what we refuel with. And yet sometimes for me that feels like a Twix and a packet of crisps and a can of Coke, but I know that that's not healthy. So again, I have that balance of trying to find nutritious food. I often kind of prepare things so that I can have a snack during the day. And they might seem like little things, but they're really important. We are the business. I am my business, so I need to be running with a full tank. And if I'm not, then I'm not at my best. And obviously, I want to be the best for myself, but I want to be the best for my clients as well. They're so important. Without my clients, then I don't have a business, do I? So yeah. So I think being my best self allows me to be my best self, not just for me, but for the people that I work with as well. I'd say ChatGPT is one of my best mates now, which is really interesting actually, because when I first started thinking about AI, it made me feel a bit of fraud. And I think I had all of these ideas, and I can formulate them and I can put things together, but it takes me hours, absolutely hours to do that. I think quite often people with ADHD, that process can take them 5 times longer than it normally does. And I remember somebody saying, oh, well, let's say it takes you 20 minutes to do a social media post. And I thought 20 minutes, that takes me hours. So I think I was introduced to the idea of AI, and I started using ChatGPT, and I put my ideas in. So they were my ideas. It's just that formulation of it and putting some structure to it was amazing. And I started to come around to the idea of this is okay. This is okay. I'm still being authentic. I'm still being me. Everything I'm putting in here is me, is my ideas. It's not ChatGPT's ideas. Although I have to say, ChatGPT is very good at coming up with ideas, and I love the way that it will challenge me. I just feel like I've got a personal assistant. Feel like I've got a personal assistant with me all the time. And not only does it help me with content writing, it helps me with structure, it helps me generate ideas, it helps me to set goals, smart goals. I'll ask ChatGPT, this is my goal, help me break it down. Um, I actually, in fact, I did a post on social media about how ChatGPT was my new best friend and all the ways that it helps me. And one of the things that really made me laugh was that actually I feel like I have a bit of office banter with ChatGPT. I didn't realize what good humor it has. So, it has made me giggle along the way. In all honesty, if you took ChatGPT away from me, I'd feel really, really lost. Really lost. It's supported me so much, and I think I have worked with clients where I have recommended them using it, and it's been a game changer, an absolute game changer, particularly, well, for everybody, I think, but particularly for people with ADHD. So help manage the overwhelm. And I think because ChatGPT and I are like that now. It knows a lot about me, and so everything comes back like, how can I help you manage the overwhelm with this, Vicky? It is really great for having those kind of conversations. I'm a little bit worried that, it, it's a little bit too human for me, and I do sometimes worry about, oh my gosh, is going to take over my job, or people not going to come to a therapist or a coach anymore and ask ChatGPT instead. But you can never take away that personal element. But I also think what it helps me do is signpost me to different apps as well. And it will ask me, would you like me to support you in Canva with this? Canva's something that's new to me. I've really loved that. Yeah, that was one of the ones that I went down a rabbit hole with, where I'd find myself at 3 o'clock in the morning still playing with Canva. There's so much out there to support businesses. Accounts is one thing that I really struggle with, and then somebody introduced me to Free Agent. That's changed my life, absolutely changed my life. And I think for me now, it's about getting familiar. Somebody's just recommended Trello. I've never used that before. So I think it's about getting curious and experimenting with different things and finding what works for you. What works for me might not work for somebody else. And it's got to fit with our needs. I've tried quite a few things. Having an ADHD brain sometimes means that the novelty goes off. So I might think it's super exciting and then really boring. So then I have to move on to the next. But there's so much support out there to help. I think that just get curious. I definitely there was another app, I can't remember what, but I heard it this morning. So straight away I'm Googling how this can help me. So I've got a long list of things of when I get bored with this, I'll try that one. But the support's out there, but definitely AI. If you're working on your own, it's like having your PA in your back pocket. Any challenges, anything that comes up, ChatGPT. Managing expectations on social media is really, really important. I haven't used social media for personal use, so I was kind of starting from scratch. And I had this expectation that I grow this great following and I get lots of interaction and loads of likes, and it's going to be this amazing thing. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It's a slow burner. And I think what I've learned is that it supports me. It's not the whole of my business. It supports me. It gets me recognized out there. I use Instagram, and I'm growing my followers. I am growing my followers, but it's a very, very slow pace. And I think what I've massively learned is to not get caught up in that, not get caught up with, oh, I've only had 2 extra followers this week, or I've only got one like. It doesn't matter. I think for me, all I can say is that since I've been posting on social media, I've never had as many inquiries as I have right now, ever. And either that's coincidental or it shows the power of social media. And whilst I might not get a lot of engagement, I think in my industry, people don't necessarily engage in social media. And I think that's another thing that I've learned. I've kind of observed my own behavior. And it's very rare I will comment or like something, but I'll go and have a look at the website. So I think that's really important to kind of try and get out of your head that, oh, I've only got 2 likes, or this, nobody likes this, and then go to that kind of imposter syndrome place. I think that's really important to recognize that it takes time. And there's some people out there who are doing amazingly well. And they've probably been doing it a lot longer than me. And I think it's like anything, it's having that patience to just keep chipping away, just keep chipping away, get out your comfort zone, do something different, get creative, try different things, but always monitor it. And that's been really interesting as well, is that kind of monitoring, well, what's done well, what were people engaging in. So I think that's been a huge part for me of social media. But it's not everything. It's part of my business. What I have noticed was the amount of time it was taking me in the beginning was just huge. And I thought, if this is going to be how long it takes me to keep on top of social media, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It was a chore. I was posting because I felt I had to. But I think what's happened is I've persevered, I've not given up. And I think what I've recognized is that I have more ideas, I'm getting more creative, I'm interested in more learning, tapping into different, people out there who are doing amazing, and and stealing some of their ideas. It's like I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So, but I think what I've noticed is it's not that chore that it was. I've got better at it, I've got quicker at it. There's still a long way to go, but I'd love to check in this time next year and see the difference. Because I think that we just grow. The more we do something, the better we get. So give it a go. Definitely give it a go. And if it's not working, then move on to something else. But if you're seeing some change, which I am, then I can't not it can't not support my business. I think pricing's always been a challenge for me. I think going back to kind of training as a counsellor, I'm there to support people. I'm helping people in distress. There's a lot of organisations out there that are voluntary. You start off your placement as a volunteer, so you're counselling people for free, and it's almost that seed is planted. And I think over the time I've tightened up my boundaries, but I've massively learned. So I would charge minimal rate. If people cancelled out, I'd just let them off. I didn't have any boundaries. And I think what really helped me actually was a conversation with my supervisor. And that was when I started working with couples. And he's a very shrewd businessman as well as a wonderful therapist and supervisor. And he was saying, Vicky, this is your business. This is what pays your bills and puts food on your table. So he says, it might sound harsh. He said, but if somebody can't get a babysitter to come to the session, that's not your problem. It just felt so harsh. It felt really, really harsh. But I think what I've recognised is this is a business. And yes, I am supporting people. That is my job. And quite often these people are in distress. But I'm helping them. So it's about tapping into my own value, my own worth. And I think that's super important. I've got years of experience of counselling. I did 4 years training. I invest in supervision. I invest in my CPD. I put a lot of money and effort into myself. And I think it's probably only in the last couple of years, I would say, ironically, since I started treating this as a business, that I've become more boundaried. And I am boundaried, and sometimes that's really hard, to say to somebody, well, I'm sorry, but you've cancelled last minute. I can't fill that space now. Um, Only yesterday I had 3 cancellations for various reasons, and if I didn't charge, that's my business. I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do if I didn't. So I think that's really important, and I'm really boundaried with that, but I do set it up right from the beginning. I'm very clear on that. I'm very clear on my prices. I particularly with couples can be kind of up and down. They can put an appointment in the diary, but then just not show up because they've had a big row. So I ask couples to pay me up front. I do get, funnily enough, I do chase some clients. I would say 90% of the clients that I chase for money have ADHD. So that's my next challenge is to kind of figure out a way of, yeah, of managing that for them and managing it for me. But I think pricing is important and I think it really connects to your values. It connects to what you do and it also connects to your story. You know, we all have story around money, you know, and what we charge. And I think it's so important. I offer a service from a place of experience. I really help people. I love what I do. I'm really, really passionate. Um, so therefore, I now value myself enough to price accordingly, to be fair, but to have my boundaries, which I'm very clear about in terms of cancellations. I think in business, in freelancing, there are a lot of people who, like me, are ADHD. And the reason for that is because it's so difficult to work for somebody and meet their expectations from their neurotypical perspective. And even this morning, I had a conversation with my neighbour who has just left his office job because it's just too overwhelming, too restricted. And he's kind of gone into working for himself, which was lovely to hear. I think the challenge is the overwhelm because there is a lot to do. So the overwhelm is huge. I think that's one of the sticking points. And I would say to any business owner, get support out there. I've had ADHD coaching, and for me, it's been a game changer. It's been an absolute game changer because it's helped me to structure myself. It's helped me to stay organized. It's helped me keep on track. It's helped me to prioritize because in my mind, everything's a priority, everything. And therefore I try and do everything and that can't happen. So definitely around seeking out some support. There's some brilliant people out there talking things through, learning to. I've got some great tools myself. Like I use the urgent important matrix, which I think is a great tool to help me prioritize. As I said earlier, I used timers that really help. But the biggest thing is support. The biggest thing is support. It's huge, you know. ADHD, living with ADHD is challenging. It is hard, and that kind of, you know, knowing that you need that dopamine hit, but you don't get it in tasks that you don't want to do, knowing that you get overwhelmed, knowing that it's very easy to head towards burnout. I think when you're running a business, all of that needs to be part of your business plan. You know, we might have marketing, finances, all of that, but actually your self-care is huge. And I think that in any business, ADHD or not, self-care needs to be part of your business plan. I massively believe in that. It's about looking after yourself. You are the business. If you don't look after yourself, you're not going to be able to run your business well. So that's a huge thing for me.